Once upon a time, a boy was born in Peterborough and a girl was born in Norwich. A few years later, their parents moved them to the Isle of Man, that teeny island in the Irish Sea. A few years after that, boy met girl. Boy fell in love with girl. Boy asked girl to marry him. Girl said yes, and they planned a big, fat, stateless wedding? Wait, what? Hold up, let's go back to that last bit. What's a stateless marriage? Well, a traditional marriage is the legally recognised union of a man and a woman as partners in a relationship. So that usually includes a registrar or officiate, a wedding certificate, a marriage licence and 2 witnesses. On the other hand, a stateless marriage is a non-legal recognition of the union between a man and a woman. In this case, it is a religious ceremony performed in front of the couple's community and before their God. Right, so I think we've got that. So here are some of the people making my Big Fat Stateless Wedding happen.
An unusual request.
I was really excited when Leah suggested the idea.
It was unusual, but I wasn't surprised.
I don't fully understand what they're doing.
Not the typical response a bride hopes for, is it?
It's something that we think is important to what the institution of marriage means to us.
I think they've come to their conclusion because of the principles that they want to uphold.
It's an opportunity for us to make a statement about what marriage is to us and what marriage is to our community and our friends. But equally, this could be an opportunity for society more broadly to say, do you know what, we can stop arguing about who can get married and why they can get married, and whether it's one man, one woman, or a man and a man, or a woman and a woman, or multiple people. Because we don't think that's something that should be defined at the social level. That's something that should be defined by the individuals who want to make a commitment to each other.
And my first response when meeting with them was to think, yeah, that's great. We're a church. We're marrying people primarily in the sight of God.
We were initially told that it would be fine, which was our expectation and our early understanding.
As I began to think about it, and then as I took it to the church leadership team and also discussed it with the Baptist Union of Great Britain, which is the wider church body that we relate to, I began to see that there were 2 things that were kind of in opposition to each other a little, or in tension. And one was our commitment to, on the one hand, to Leah and Graham as a couple. Leah has been in our church for most of her life. She's grown up in the church. Graham is a valued member of the church, and delighted that they want to get married. But a tension between that and, in a strange way, our commitment to marriage. And we spent a lot of hours talking about this as a church leadership team, and we were concerned that there would be, that people would see potentially a diluting of commitment to marriage if we were offering legal and non-legal marriages, and that there could be a great deal of misunderstanding within the wider community.
I don't agree with Broadway's decision. I can see a little bit of where they're coming from. I think we all have to decide what battles we're going to fight. This isn't necessarily a big one for Broadway at this time, but it could come up to have an impact.
So let's recap. A normal or traditional marriage is performed in front of the registrar or someone who is ordained. You should also have a marriage licence and 2 witnesses. So because that's the normal thing to do, you get all the usual benefits of being a normal married couple. Tax benefits, legal access to each other's bank accounts, etc. Whereas what we're doing means not as many benefits because there is no legal evidence of our commitment. But it's not as bad as we thought it would be. Turns out, because of the decline in couples actually getting married these days, the tax benefits are pretty much the same. But other than that, we just have to make some careful contracts and have a rockin' will. So, where are we? Broadway won't let Bill marry us, Mum's not too impressed, but hey, me and Graham are still pretty happy.
We've had a real range of responses, particularly from our families. It's been a little bit difficult, probably more for Leah than for me, that her family aren't entirely understanding. Not that they've caused us any difficulties, more the fact that they just don't really understand what we're doing and why we're doing it.
For some people it's just a negative attitude, or it's why would you want to do that? Other people have gone away and thought about it and then come back to me and said, what about this, what about that, what about this? So I suppose it's certainly got people thinking.
Outside of the church, and even more specifically outside of the church leadership, the response was incredibly positive. We had Christians and non-Christians alike saying, do you know what, that's really beautiful that you've decided to make more of the faith element of the commitment that you're making, which is exactly the intention, and people saw that immediately.
Ooh, what's going on here? And to the people that I love and care about, Lee and Graham have to be the ones to do it.
So in the end, after a great deal of thinking it through and praying it through, we reluctantly said to Graham and Leah that we didn't feel that we could offer a church-led stateless marriage.
We really wanted to have the pastor of our church perform the ceremony. It's indicative of authority in the church and in our community, which is something that's important to us in this kind of statement of commitment. But ultimately we ended up going down different avenues. So we talked to a pastor of another church. He unfortunately was also told by his leadership, this time at a national level, that he would not be allowed to do it.
But we still wanted to honour them and to recognise their commitment to one another. Graham and Leah were keen to have their ceremony in the church, so we've said that we're happy for them to use the space and to conduct their own ceremony. I suppose I would call it a covenant commitment ceremony, I don't know, something like that, but not for it to be something which we feel that we can offer as a service of the church, if you like.
What we did in the end was find someone who was not ordained. Michael is still representative of authority in our community. He runs a local homeless shelter, he's very involved in our church, and he's a very, very close personal friend who we have a massive amount of respect for.
I said to Graham, it must be getting really bad. He's scraping the bottom of the barrel. So, I mean, I was pleased to be asked. It's always nice to be asked to do things that involve sort of dramatic and intimate parts of people's lives, and that people trust you to be involved in that is always nice. I mean, I knew from discussions with Graham and Leah, and with Graham in particular, the reasons why they wanted somebody who was ordained, particularly within the sort of the local church setting, and there's obviously been difficulties in getting somebody to do that. And again, I'd said from the outset to Graham and Leah that, being very supportive of what they were trying to do, I was happy to help in any way that I could. And yes, it was an honour to be asked, and it'll be a joy and a privilege to participate in that.
So that's a good solution for us. It's nevertheless a shame that we had to go to that kind of length. We certainly don't have any theological issue with the person conducting the ceremony not being ordained. There's no biblical imperative for an ordained individual to do that.
Certainly Graham and Leah are ploughing a different and unusual furrow, but their commitment to one another and their commitment to live together, committed to each other in honouring God in the way they do that, is certainly something that I would be very keen to affirm.
I respect Leah and Graham's decision that they're making now. If they go ahead with this, that is absolutely fine by me. But what makes me sad is that other people don't necessarily see that. That objection that they come up with is detracting from the celebration of marriage that should be taking precedent at this time. The most important thing for me to do as the mother of the bride is to bring it back on track and celebrate the decision that they are making, which is to get married, because they are getting married.
So with only a few months left till the big day, boy and girl still have a lot left to do. Plenty of planning and organising before boy takes girl to be his unlawfully wedded wife. So here's to living happily ever after.